Hey folks, this is Jayesh, and I built an app that makes renting properties way faster and easier. Think of it as NoBroker, but here you don't have any human intermediary involved, so there's zero commissions. And you get agents for both sellers and buyers who talk to each other internally and don't really bother the humans unless needed. So let me show you how exactly this works. So the diagram that you see in front of you represents the system. And let's talk about it from both the buyers and the seller's perspective. So let's start with the seller. How does the property get onto that platform? So as a seller, what you do is you upload your properties along with details and other stuff. And you also list out your preferences. That's a one-time job. And once your properties are on the platform, let's go to the buyer's side. Right? So what happens on the buyer's side is you also list your preferences. So you go to the platform and you sign up. You get a place to add your name and preferences. And then when you start your chat, you get an agent assigned to yourself. And each seller also has an agent, which takes care of all of its properties. So coming back to the buyer agent, so you now, instead of traditionally going through the properties, usually like you do usually, you would now just talk to the buyer agent. So what you do is you say, okay, maybe show me shortlist properties, and then it scans all the available properties based on your preferences, and it gives you a shortlist. And it doesn't end there. Obviously, what happens next is that you can say, okay, let me schedule visits for all of them. And then what happens is the buyer agent talks to all of these seller agents in parallel, and it tries to figure out what dates work out. And how does it do that? It has access to all of your calendars. So buyer agent has access to the buyer calendar, seller has access to the seller calendars, and they figure out common dates. They also discuss details like, let's say, proximity to parks and other preferences you must set when you're searching for properties. So this is how it works. So internally, all of it happens without bothering either the seller or the buyer. But you can also obviously ask for exceptions. But that's something we can see in the demo. So let me quickly show you how this looks like in real life. This is the property page, and you can see there are some properties already added here from NoBroker. And what you can do is you can write your name here. You also have an option to specify dates, where you can also leave it empty for now. But in the future, it might be a calendar integration, of course. And in preferences, you can write, I want something in, let's say, Koramangala, right? And you can start the chat. So once you start the chat, you will get an agent assigned to you. This is the agent chatbot. And what you can do is, instead of scrolling through the properties, you can just say, show me shortlisted properties. And now what my agent will try to do is it will go through all of these available properties and try to figure out what works best for me. So you can see there are two Koramangala properties here, and it gives me descriptions for both of them, right? And what I can do now, let's say if I'm satisfied with this, I can say, let's say, schedule visits for both of them. And now what this will try to do is it'll talk to the seller agents. It will look at my calendar, it will look at seller's calendars, and then it will try to fix a date. So it's already done that right now. So it has fixed it on November 21st. And how it does is it tries to get confirmation from sellers if they are also free on the same date, right? And if I go to the seller chats right now, you can see there are nothing here. There's nothing here because it's not trying to bother the seller right now because it already knows the dates, right? So this is how it works. And now let's say I can also ask for some exceptions. Let's say maybe can I. And now in such cases, it will also talk to the seller and then try to figure out what the preferences are for the seller and then let me know what works. So it has inquired about it and then it will update me. So it says, unfortunately, it's not allowed. And the seller has mentioned that you have to be back by 9 p.m. or it has to be quiet by 9 p.m. So if I go back to the seller chat, you see that I still don't have anything here. So it hasn't bothered the seller at all because it knows its preferences. But what I can do now is I can request an exception. So I can say, can you please request an exception? And in this case, what will happen is the seller would now be notified because the seller agent itself can't make decisions on behalf of the seller, right? So in this case, if I go back to the seller, you can see it has come back with an exception. It says, buyer agent has inquired about an exception. Can you allow that? So maybe I can say something like, okay, if they pay 2K more, right? Or something like that. And then what happens now is like the same will be communicated back to the buyer. So if I go back here, it says, somewhere it will tell you that you can have an exception, but you have to pay 2K more. So this is how it works. So essentially, the idea is very simple. You have automatic parallel scheduling, and you're not bothered by the agents unless it's specifically necessary. So that's the whole idea. It's also built on mahilo, which means you can also have advanced voice mode support because we support that in OpenAI through OpenAI. But let me know what you think about it. I'm super excited to build this into a product sometime. Thanks so much.